Hello and welcome back to the DoreOntour podcast. I'm not DoreOntour, I'm Jamie. I'm covering Dore tonight. He's not been very well the last couple of days, so I'm going to be filling in for him tonight and talking a little bit about the latest game, which was Nottingham Forest v Man City. It was a game actually where I thought Forest performed quite well, but we lacked that clinical edge, unfortunately, which could have seen us get a point or maybe even more. But I won't be talking too much about that. I'm going to let the guests do that. So introducing our guest today, Molo. How are you doing? Good afternoon or good evening?
Yeah, all good, thank you. And just finished watching the playback of the game, so nice and fresh in the mind.
He's got it ready. He's ready to talk about it. Dave, how are you doing? Good to see you.
Mate, good to see you too. I'm now dealing with noise complaints from my New York abode because I'm over here in the States. Just shouting at the screen after 20 seconds. You just knew. Yeah, as soon as he didn't get, you just knew, didn't you? And then the thing is, if he puts it in after 20 seconds, you know that Manchester City go on and score 2 or 3 goals and we can't hold on. So it didn't really matter. But so nervous, Jamie. But good to see you, mate. And we mentioned in the pre-show, for anyone trying to work out, or maybe we make this a trivia for the show, Jamie, who the Forest player is in your background on the left.
Oh yeah, let's get the guessing in. Get your guessing in. Who is the player just here? Let me know if you can guess. Steve's got his face right up to the camera, so I've got to introduce him now. Steve, good to see you, mate. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good.
I'm good, Steve.
It's all right. I'm very competitive, so I need to see that picture. I'm good, Jay. Yeah, I'm not too bad. I get my teeth into this game. I got my views in it.
Okay, I'm excited to hear because I feel like there's going to be maybe some differing views, but I think more importantly, a lot of good, strong talking points as well. So, and as well, it just leaves me to say hello to you as well. I hope you're doing well. To those listening, it's good to see you all. Colin, how you doing? Peter, good to hear from you. Davey, I'm off the naughty step for a moment, so I'm back doing YouTube. How are you doing? Eve, good to see you as well. How are you doing? Gregory, how you doing, my friend? Paul, good to see you the other day as well. Hope you're doing well. And it isn't Trevor Francis, by the way. Just want to clarify, it's not Trevor Francis behind me. But get your guesses in. Get your guesses in, and we'll be talking about that throughout the show. And I'm sure Steve will keep leaning forward to try and find out who it is. But first, we'll start off with the result yesterday. Even Molo's getting in it now. Let's talk about that game. So first of all, Molo, could you kind of just summarize in your view how you felt that game went yesterday?
Well, if it was early in the season, we'd be reflecting on it saying, wow, we've just more than matched Manchester City. Superb game plan, set up perfectly, mostly carried out all of the sort of instructions that needed to be done to get what we need. Didn't quite finish it off, and it's not through. They weren't. Not to criticise any individuals at this stage, but we didn't just make half chances either. We had 3 that 9 times out of 10 or 99 times out of 100 we should score and would score. So we played really well. Absolutely, in theory, deserved something out of it, but the problem is it's all about the points. You don't deserve anything if you miss chances like that, in a sense, especially against a team like City. But I've come away from it with mixed feelings. Obviously, we played well and whatnot, and I don't like to be too critical of the players' mentality, but do any of us really believe, and they need to, they'll take that into next week's game against City? Because all season long, that's not been the case. My fear is we'll drop down to, and I know it's a different game, drop down a level next week when we play Sheffield United, and it'll be another crappy draw. But the game in isolation, so many positives right through the team. Watching it back again, I think almost the player that gets missed the most doesn't get the credit he deserves, who's been absolutely outstanding lately. Even against Everton for 60 minutes was Danilo. Lots of them played really well. Bolly being back was massive. He had a monstrous game as well. And suddenly we've got this new left back that at the end of the game, all the Man City players look like they're trying to tap up because he looked like the perfect player for Man City on that performance, didn't he? Ola Aina hopefully came of age and can follow that up. Best left back performance of the season by anyone. He was
tired,
almost
wasn't
Huh?
He was tired, wasn't he?
So,
He was gassed on some of those runs.
And maybe as well.
Defensively, he was really good as well. Let's not forget he was up against good players, and you can bomb forward and do all that, but you've still got to shut the door at the back. And he did that. He did everything you'd want from your left back, bar the final ball once or twice, or score himself. Stuart Pearce style. So hugely positive in isolation, but we've got nothing from it again. And if we can take that forward to next week, and it's a different. You play like that against Sheffield United, you win 3 or 4. But will we? And I'll leave it there. But yeah, really positive. It came out of the ground frustrated we didn't get something, but watching it back, we were superb. Right up until the second goal.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think actually as well, going back to Aina for a moment, and it isn't the next question, but I think that he's possibly the best value for money signing that Forest made in the summer, to be honest, and one of the best since we came up for me. I think when he's fit, he adds another dimension to your game because he's got the defensive prowess of Toffolo, if not a little bit better, and then he's got much better attacking skills than Nuno Tavares. I think he kind of offers a mixture of what other fullbacks offer individually, which is really, really handy. It's just if you can keep him fit. So, really, really impressed with Aina, definitely. And I do agree, Molo, as well. I thought that we missed some really big chances. But, David, I'm going to ask you this question now. Forest can't seem to dominate a game of football, which isn't necessarily a bad thing when you play the bigger teams, because as Molo says, you kind of, or as we seem to do, we seem to replicate their standard. We did well against Liverpool. We did well against City. But the problem is when we do play teams that on paper we should beat, that standard then drops again. So what do you think the reasoning is for that? And can Sheffield United be a turning point perhaps for Forest?
Well, it's just the psychology of it, Jamie. We say it all season, the psychology of, or the mental fragility of the Nottingham Forest team. Like, there's nothing like a match against Forest to let in a 96th minute goal. And so, whether they can get themselves up. These Sheffield guys, they are going to be super pumped. And so you're getting up for playing Man City. Goodness, I reckon I'd get up for playing Man City because it's a chance of a lifetime. But Sheffield United is a completely different kettle of fish. And now that they are relegated, there's no pressure for them. They're playing for their futures. There'll be a whole bunch of players from their team off contract. So there's how do you galvanise the team? And especially against the backdrop of the week that Forest had with the refereeing stuff and the VAR and all those sort of things. How can we do that again? I think what we're going to see is the quality of the Forest squad. So, whilst we may not applaud Ibrahim Sangara and some of those players and, the ongoing argument of Ryan Yates off the bench, we've got some pretty good bench players. And so compared to, some of these other teams coming in at the end of the season, we should be able to run over the top of them. They're going to be exhausted from that match, though. It wouldn't surprise me if, Aina was exhausted. So, can he go again? Don't know, but it's a constant problem for Forest. Can they get up for this week's match? Goodness, I hope they do. But Sheffield, they're going to be pumped. They could easily ambush us, and maybe we're better off if we're in the relegation zone going into this match, so the pressure's on.
No.
But I will just say as well, I mean, I see the point about Sheffield United being ready because they kind of want to bring someone down with them. And of course, there is a sort of rivalry now because of what happened in the playoffs. And I'm not just talking about the playoffs where we won. I'm talking about the playoffs where we lost as well. This is both ways. This has been something that's been going on for a while. So there will be bad blood definitely between the two sides. So, Steve, how much maybe could that rivalry mentality perhaps galvanise Forest to do better? Because the last time that we really had a rivalry, a proper one, was probably against Derby in the last season before we went up, because you can say what you want about Leicester, but I don't feel the rivalry there. Against Wolves, it was kind of a bit of a grudge match, but this has a little bit more grit to it.
Yeah, definitely. This is like 20 odd years in the making, isn't it? It stems from all the way back in 2003. Was you even born, Jay? I'm not sure if you.
No, I was 2. Yeah. That was 2 years before I was born.
Yeah, that's where my hatred of Sheffield United stemmed from. That game still brings me nightmares now.
So much so that he fell off the stream. That's how much it gave him nightmares.
That's how much I hate them. Someone's in, Neil Warnock is interfering with this link, I think. With the game on Saturday, I think because they are relegated, the atmosphere isn't going to be as intense as if they were still, as in if they had to survive. I mean, because they are down, yes, they want to beat us, and I agree with you, Jay, they want to drag us down. But we got to be pumped for this. They're gonna kick. They're gonna throw elbows. They're gonna get stuck into us. There's some ex-Forest players in there as well. I mean, Jack Robertson, he's going to be wound up. So we just got to play the football, get the ball on the deck, play the football like we did against Fulham, and like we did on Saturday. I thought we were outstanding on Saturday. It still hasn't really sunk in how good we were. I've had people come to me in work today saying how well Forest played. We should have been 4-0 up. And to be honest with you, I'm going to say it on record, that wouldn't have flattered us, because I think we were that good, generally against one of the best teams. We got to look at on value. Like, Wood takes some chances, and Molo, was it Dave said a point of we could have scored in the first minute, Nico on the back stick.
Your man.
I mean, who from the kickoff, what teams attacked City like we did, really? And I think that's what stunned them. I think they looked a bit shocked. And all these excuses of Phil Ford not played and the pitch was dry, and come on.
The grass was too dry.
Come on.
They were better when Haaland came on, Steve. Like, they did lift it here, and they put on a top player.
I've seen a great tweet, right? This guy put a Forest fan post saying they can bring on a 500k a week player off the bench, and apparently we are the ones in the wrong. We are the ones who've been overspending, and we're bringing football into dispute and all that kind of thing. That's the luxury they have. They have bench. I mean, even with Ford not there, they had an unreal bench on Saturday. Or yesterday, sorry. It's just, coming back to my main point, though, we need to back that up now. And a few of us have touched on, with Forest, it tends to be like the Fulham game. We put that in and then we dip. If we play with that intensity on Saturday, forget about the crowd. Just play the game. I think we can comfortably beat them. I'd like to see that. I think we can possibly come away. I'm sure we'll get to predictions later. But we have far better side than them. Come on. We've got to believe now. For once, we got to believe we are a better team than them. For once.
But you know what? This is the thing. I believe that Forest are a better team than quite a few teams down this kind of area of the table on paper. But as the great man said, it's played on grass. And unfortunately, as recent times would suggest, that the chemistry doesn't seem to be there, and it doesn't quite seem to be that everyone's playing together as a team. Do they trust each other 100%? I don't know. But when you had someone like Bolly and who's got that stature, that experience, I feel like you do feel more comfortable and you feel you can play a better game, because I think that Murillo is best when he's got Bolly next to him. I think that Niakate is best when he's got Bolly next to him, or Felipe when he was fit, because they are leaders. And I think that that's what the squad lacks for me. They need more leaders in that team. Because, even when Yates is on, Yates is still quite young. I'm talking about someone like Bolly, who's seen the Premier League, who's seen, Champions League football with Porto, and he's played under Nuno before. So, I think that it's really important we understand what, who's going to motivate this team, and players like Bolly being there it is massive. So I think that Forest are better on paper than Sheffield United by a mile.
That's a good point, Jay, because just me quickly say about Bolly. There was an incident in the first half. He put a challenge in on Grealish, right? And he left his mark on him. Yeah. And Bolly just looked at him like, I don't care. I'm not going to give you any respect. Grealish could have glared at him. And Bolly just put the challenges in. And that's what we've been lacking, that physicality, just no nonsense, just get stuck into them. Show him no respect. And that's what we did. We showed him no respect. That's what I like. That's what impressed me yesterday. That we just went head on with them. And that's what I really liked throughout the game.
But that's what you should do. For me, that's what you should do in the Premier League, because every game that we've done that, we've performed better. Because you look at the reverse fixture when we played them at the Etihad, that second half, they got nothing from us. Nothing. And we were close to scoring a couple of times. So for when I was in the commentary, I said, if we can just carry on from that second half performance at the Etihad from earlier in the season, September, you've got a fantastic game of football that you're going to watch there. And at the end of the day, Forest, when they let teams play their game, that is when they crumble. When we let Luton play their game and sat back and defended, we crumbled. We can't deal with the pressure of being on the back foot. But when we're going forward and we're just going through it and throwing everything we've got here, and as you say, we've got a good enough bench to deal with, if someone needs to come off, we should just throw it at all of them. Sheffield United, straight away, give it to Murillo, kick the ball long, and let's get the attack started from the start. I don't see the point in trying to build it up slowly or sitting back and letting them have a bit of the ball to try and counter-attack. We're better than that, and we've got to give ourselves more respect and just go for it, for me. But Mollo, Sheffield United, of course, Bramall Lane's a bit of an intimidating atmosphere. They are, of course, relegated, and we spoke about the atmosphere maybe not being as good, but I'm sure the fans are going to be up for it. There's Forest fans in the away end. They're going to be wanting to give them some stick, and more importantly, they're going to want to give the players some stick. So how important is mental strength when it comes to games at Bramall Lane? Because it's a historic ground, and there's, as I say, a lot of rivalry there.
I think I've no clue how they're going to react, because they're a weird set of supporters, aren't they? As we know, I won't go into the whys and wherefores, but they've got a very unpleasant element, but also quite on a good day, a really good atmosphere. But I don't think it's going to be too much of a problem. It's not so much mental strength, I feel, that we lack. We do lack it in a sense, but it's experience. You hit the nail on the head with when Bolly's on the pitch, it brings you, like Felipe last year, not just at the back. It's a calming influence through the whole team, isn't it? It's that thing. I think at Bramall Lane, you'd like to think their supporters are going to be a little bit, oh gosh, I wish this season was over. Damn it, we've got to play them stupid lot from down the road, as they like to call us, something along those lines. And I just think, you've hit the, that's if Murillo's playing about starting the game. We've got to start the game with intensity. They're going to defend for their lives anyway, just because that's the sort of players they've got. They do, early in a game recently, they've been creating chances, so we don't want to give them anything to hang on to. And then we just got to blow them away, like you say. But it's an awful thing, experience this season has taught us it's not the Forest way. I think Steve's comment, was it roll over them or whatever it was? I agree, but do you honestly think we will? We should, but will we? I love him. He's been amazing, but since hitting the post against Spurs, Chris Wood's lost his shooting boots. He's missed probably his last 5 or 6 decent chances, hasn't he? Which is not like him, which would say to me the next one will go in, which hopefully will be on Saturday. Murillo probably won't be playing, but I don't think that'll matter too much, if I'm honest, because what they've got up front and what we've got available, off the bench. But I just think, what I will say, when I look at the times that it hasn't followed up a good performance, quite often there's been fiddling around and tinkering with the team. And I know sometimes it's horses for courses, particularly against Man City. The 5 at the back worked an absolute treat.
Oh, didn't it?
But do you change things for Saturday, or do you go back to a back 4? Because I actually think, as much as I'm not a fan of a back 5 normally, when Nico was on the pitch especially, I thought that the 2 wide wing backs were outstanding. Absolutely outstanding. Nico's, for me, I know it won't go down well with all the Murillo lovers, but for me, Nico's my player of the season, even if he doesn't play again with his injury. But that really, really hurt Man City. The width. What at the game, I thought we played really well, and I was really proud of them. Watching it back on TV, knowing that what the score was going to be, and not kind of biting my nails every time Man City crossed the halfway line, I realised just how well we did play, how we contained them, how we hurt them, how well we passed the ball. How Kevin De Bruyne got man of the match is so beyond me. He gave the ball away so many. Well, they gave it away. We were snapping into him, getting the ball off him. It should have been Aina, or if you're going to pick the midfielder, Danilo and Gibbs White. Who would have thought that combination would work like that? Absolutely brilliant, the pair of them. And I keep saying it, and I know me and Des have this sort of, what's the word I'd say? We don't necessarily agree on this. I think Danilo is that defensive midfielder we've been looking for years. He's just still growing into the role with experience, and we're seeing it more and more. How good he is at protecting the defence, but then how good he is on the ball to get us out as well. There's a couple of occasions where in tight spots on the edge of the box, he'd won the ball, a little shimmy, a little drop of the shoulder, and then he rolled it improved. 5-yard pass and someone was away breaking into their midfield. Picking out one or two players there. But getting back to your original question, sorry, Jamie, I don't think it's mental strength so much as the ability to carry on what we did. And there is that little flip it slightly, watching it back again. Man City looked quite leggy for them, which you can understand. And they weren't their usual selves, largely because we pressured them the way we did, but also they were making mistakes. That normally when you watch Man City, you're like, wow, this is football from another planet, aren't you? We were getting into them, but they were also making quite unforced mistakes, which isn't like them, which is why he changed it. And they brought on Kovacic, like you say, Haaland and all these players that we wish we could have in our team to try and stem the tide. And literally, the kick-off of the second half to when they scored, we absolutely battered them. I couldn't believe what I was watching when I watched it back the second time round. It was like, wow, I know we played well. I didn't realise how well we played. So if we take that forward, we smash Sheffield United. But do I think we will? It's Forest, so you never know. But would you change the side as well, but for injury?
Well, yeah, I think the 5 at the back thing's really interesting because the wing backs were fantastic. They were really good, overlapping. And also, I thought that Nico did a lot of the work that Ilanga unfortunately didn't do. And again, I don't like to go to specific players, but I thought that Ilanga still doesn't look fit to me. He looks completely off the pace from what we've seen before. Looks like he's playing a bit nervously, which is a concern because I do think that he's a player that will change a game if he's on it. And also with Hudson-Odoi, coming inside or putting a cross in early, Ilanga's kind of offering something a bit different on the right-hand side. So you've got 2 completely different challenges either wing when they're both on, top form. But then when you have the back 5, like we saw at Man City, and it might not work against Sheffield United, but when we saw it at City, Aina's overlapping and doing a great job, offering some support to Hudson-Odoi. When Montiel came on, I think that he actually offered some positive glimpses as well. So I was quite impressed with him. Don't get me wrong, I don't think that he's of the quality of Nico Williams, but having seen Nico limp out of the Forest ground yesterday with a big medical kit, I think it's fair to say we're not going to see him again this season. So Montiel for me will do well, and he turned up when he needed to. So David, tell me what you think about the back 5. Any reason that you might go to a back 4, or what are your thoughts?
Well, Jamie, firstly on the Montiel point, he's obviously a quality player. And he just looked a little underdone compared to Nico. And so if you do stick with... I thought the back 5 worked and we actually got the maximum value out of every player positionally. Like I even was amused by centre forward Willy Bolly at the moments when he actually got forward. So I called it on the commentary, is that we weren't we played a back 5 or a back 3, but we weren't too structured to that we stuck to that. And when the moments were there, Willy Bolly got forward into that midfield to help out. Murillo was able to push forward. And so I think it certainly worked against the higher up, the higher up Man City. Would I do it against Sheffield United? I think it's horses for courses. I'm not sure if we've got Montiel on the right. I don't think we can get the same value out of him. And I'm just not sure what the back 3 looks like. And I worry actually now. I worry we only had 1 match left in Willy Bolly this season and we might have just used it. Yeah. And so if we just used it, was this, in hindsight, was this the match to use it on? And we might have 1 match left from Felipe as well. So we've got to decide which match we use them. But then if we've got Murillo,
I'll be honest, I don't think we'll see Felipe again now. I think that he's not even kitted up when he's at the ground. He was in his Timberland boots yesterday. So if he's going to be playing, I don't want him in Timberland boots, by the way.
Well, he might be if Murillo and Bolly are injured. So then what have we got then? We've got what?
They both, when Murillo left yesterday, he was okay. He didn't seem like he had any kind of discomfort on him. Bolly, the same as well. I managed to catch up with him after the game and had a quick chat. And I just realised how tall he was. The guy's an absolute giant. Nathan Ake's about my height. So I'm thinking, I must be quite a big guy. Yeah, I'm looking at Nathan Ake. He's not taller than me. And then Bolly comes over and I'm like, oh my days. What a guy.
Well, the players are all mostly tall and Bolly just towers over them. But back to your question on the 3 at the back. I also like Morgan Gibbs-White in the deeper midfield position. And I think that actually works better for him because he likes, he kind of, I like it when he comes deeper to retrieve the ball. And, when we're on we're fast break on the from the penalty box, who more would you want to have the ball in that position than Morgan Gibbs-White? And so I quite like that from that perspective. But maybe do you put Tavares at left back and put Aina on the right? Maybe.
No,
I don't think there's any need.
Go Montiel.
I don't know if there's any need to change it up really at the moment. I think you should keep Montiel and put your faith in him, because we've not got any obligation as we did before to not play him, because there was a scenario where we had 8 games left. If he played all of those games, we'd have to buy him. So we don't have that issue now. But I think the Morgan Gibbs-White dropping deeper role is really interesting, because when the flair that he had yesterday, and there was a touch where he took on De Bruyne and made him look daft. He made him look like like he was playing in school or something like that. He was brilliant. But sometimes I feel that more simplicity is needed. And, how many risks do we want to take? If you have Gibbs-White a bit higher up, I feel that he can be a bit more expressive without that risk of being caught out. But then again, I do like the build-up play for Gibbs-White in a deeper role. So I'm a bit mixed on it. But that being said,
maybe you're right. Is that the flair from deeper against Man City, and maybe that's how we play against Chelsea, but against Sheffield United, we should be playing the 4-3 or the 4-2-3-1 with White in the centre. I still think the difference between Elanga and the others is that all it takes for Elanga is one blistering run or one moment of brilliance, and he will be back in form. Whereas, like for Nico, Nico to get back in form, it took him a few games. Ola Aina, it's taken him a few games. Bolly, straight back into form. Like I just think we've got to stick faith with Hudson-Odoi and Elanga. When we get those wide players working, that's what can just tear teams to shreds. So we have to stick with that. But I'd also be tempted to Gio Reyna in the 10 spot.
No.
Deeper. I'd be tempted.
We'll talk a bit more about Reyna later, because I'm a bit conflicted on it. But Steve, I want to touch on a little point that I was kind of getting to with Gibbs-White. Not necessarily Gibbs-White, but yesterday I thought one bit that Forest could have improved on, if I'm going to be super picky about it, the ball retention. I thought that sometimes we gave away possession a little bit too easy, particularly Murillo. I think this is where kind of he wants to be ambitious and he wants to play that long ball, and I like it because sometimes it does pay off. But do you know, sometimes I just think just be a little bit more simple. And I think the simple game will, give us that confidence and get us forward a bit earlier. So what are your thoughts on the playing out from the back situation? Because it was often you're giving it to the goalkeeper and then he's kind of playing it to his wing backs, and we're doing well in that scenario. But sometimes I just think that we give it away a bit too easy.
Yeah, we do. But I'm just glad we didn't do what Brighton did to Man City on Thursday, where they tried to play in the back like Barcelona and they got murdered. That was I was watching that Brighton game. I was like, what are you doing against the best team in the land? You know what I mean? You're just inviting it. I know Brighton got their philosophy, and I was watching that game. I thought, I hope Forest don't try and do this now on the weekend, because one, we're not Brighton, and two, we're just going to get stuffed. But yeah, Murillo did go out to him a lot, and he did try them chip balls. He did try to go long. He tried to play the Hollywood pass. It didn't quite come off for him, did it? But then I think, if you had said before the game much of the ball we would have had against them, we would have bitten your arm off, because even though we ended with 34% possession, I think it was, which is still an average what you get against City, it was surprising much of the ball we had. Did you guys think we would have that much ball? I didn't, and
no, I didn't.
I think we had every opportunity.
We had more shots, Steve. So what we did have of the ball, we made.
Let's just fill the viewers in as well, if a lot of people don't know the stat that's been going around.
Oh,
I'm not a big level of stats.
In both games, though, Steve. That stat does my head in the thing going round.
Are you going to say the expected goals stat, Steve?
No. Go on, Steve.
It's the stat where it's the first time since the 2009-2010 season where against a Pep side, the most chances his side has conceded, or the attempts at goal, especially the first half as well. I can't remember the exact percentages or attempts.
The stat was it's the first team against a Pep side to have more shots at goal against his team at both home and away games. That was what the stat was. The problem is the goals was nil on both. So it means Jack, really. I know what you mean. It's really positive in one way. But
yeah, you can look at it like I said. I'm not a big level of that, but yeah, you'd expect, like, again, them chances I'm sure we'll touch on the Wood chances later on, but I mean, coming back to the ball we had, again, there was opportunities there. I mean, and they were giving the ball away. Someone touched it earlier about De Bruyne. The amount of how did he get man of the match? He assisted
2 assists,
2 goals,
but he was awful.
One was from a corner, which we know we can't defend, and the other one is just inside channel to Haaland, and Haaland did the rest. But other than that, he did nothing. He did nothing.
And it was against a one-legged. It was against a one-legged Murillo at that point, wasn't it? That was the other thing I was going to raise, but it's negative. Don't you think there was a bit of self-destruct in there, self-harm, in that? How on earth have we allowed the situation to develop with both goals, where the first goal we've got nobody defending the near post because the guy who's done it has gone off and the sub's not ready, having been down getting treatment for 2 minutes, and the second goal, Murillo was done. You could. I know we sit at that end, but you could see him, and he's a young lad with a lot of bravery. He should have been brought off. Should have come off.
The other subs ready.
I'm not saying it was good. Huh?
Yeah, but they didn't want to sub just Murillo off because they wanted to make the 3 changes at the same time, and so they made the 3 change, and they thought they could wait another 45 seconds, but you give Haaland 1 chance and he scores on you, and that's the difference. I thought we were still in it at the 1-0, and they brought on their top guy. And I thought they lifted because they just had their best player on, and so
apparently
they didn't lift because of strategy or because of what Pep did. They lifted because they had a really good player up top, and they're like, "Oh yeah, Haaland's on now, we can score." And then they just improved, and then they got a little lucky with Haaland on 1-on-1 with Murillo.
Well, apparently Micah Richard said that Murillo was scared or petrified of Haaland. Come on, the guy was limping. Come on, like, he could barely run at that point, and Haaland just perhaps De Bruyne and Haaland pinpointed that. They are smart players. Maybe Haaland just went on to Murillo, knowing that he had a limp, and just targeted him. And once he got past him, there was only one outcome, wasn't it?
I think it's interesting the way the media discuss Forest. Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it's really interesting the way.
Got a message to the corner taker, didn't he?
Yeah, it was a soft goal to concede, I think, really, and that was the most disappointing part because you saw it coming from an absolute mile away. But Steve, the point you made about Michael Richards saying that Murillo was scared, I thought was really interesting because it's just like Ashley Williams saying the pitch was dry, when he wasn't even at the game. The way that the media has talked about Forest in the last few weeks, there's a clear agenda. There's a clear agenda, and I don't like to go on a rant about it because I enjoy a lot of these programs, and often, I do think that as a fan base, sometimes we take things the wrong way, and because we're passionate, and of course we don't want anything negative about our club being said. That's a natural thing. Every fan feels that, and unfortunately, sometimes what is said is true. But on the last few weeks have just been ridiculous. The narrative towards Forest being cheats in the league and being thugs and everything else, it for me is just hypocritical because you've got Manchester City sitting on 115 charges. Chelsea spent £1 billion in a year. Aston Villa, Manchester United and Man City all voted against a spending cap today. They all voted against that, but the agenda and the focus will now be focused back on Forest, the dry pitch situation and all that rubbish. And to suggest that Murillo is scared of Haaland, don't get me wrong. I think any defender that comes up against Haaland knows what they're coming up against and they're going to be perhaps nervous. But Murillo's come up against good strikers. He's come up against good forwards. He's come up against Haaland before. And at the end of the day, for Michael Richards to say that as a centre-back himself, he's just got to understand that Haaland's a very good striker. And the goal that he scored was a good goal. Murillo was on his last legs in that game. And if you watch the goal back, the way that Haaland shapes his body, most defenders are going to struggle with that. So
it was a terrific finish, Jamie.
It was a great finish.
The way the outside, didn't he, as well?
Faked onto his left. He fakes onto his left a little bit, and then he tricks Murillo, and then yeah, just the way he kind of did it. I think that's right, Jamie. Interesting.
I'll just add the thing
the pitch doctoring. Like, if we get an advantage from having a dry pitch against Manchester City, Why the hell wouldn't we put a dry pitch against Manchester City? Like you guys, the English have been doing that against the Aussies.
Well, as well as another thing as well. How on earth, one, do they prove that, and two, did Pep actually see the rain before the game? Because I thought the club's bus came about an hour and a half, 2 hours before kickoff. It was raining. I had to wear my coat to the ground, and before there was a day's worth of rain overnight. So how on earth can look, we've got a good underground drainage system and everything now, but seriously, I think actually what he was just trying to do is kill off the time in the press conference. He wanted to be out there as soon as he could.
Well,
he wanted to go home. Yeah, just
he got to say. Haaland was interviewed after the game with all the two they interviewed. I forgot the other guy, and they were moaning about the pitch as well. Haaland mentioned the pitch. So straight away, Haaland, before any preparation or building himself for an interview, on the spot, he mentioned the pitch. Come on. These multi-millionaire footballers can't play in a bit of dry grass. Really?
Yeah, they just tell you what. If the pitch was a problem to them before the game, that is fantastic that we've got in their head with something as trivial as that at that point. Brilliant. Can I just say something that you perhaps wouldn't like to say, Jamie, in your prospective career? I'll name names. You're right about the things that are being said about Forest. Not so much what's being said, but the way they're being said. Now, how somebody with the background of Jamie Carragher can stand up and say in the way he said what he said, because I'm not disagreeing that you could argue about the tweet being a bit ropey, but the way he said what he said, coming from him, I think the phrase pot kettle black spring to mind. It's unbelievable. And Gary Neville, well, he's Gary Neville, isn't he? Gary Neville is the most eloquent, stupid person I've ever heard on TV. I know he's made an awful lot of money out of the game and investments and whatnot, and fair play to him, but he talks such rubbish and he's such a hypocrite. And he's away from football, he talks about things that, about being this mad socialist as a multi-millionaire. All the stuff he said about Qatar, and then he went out there, so experienced it for himself, and he never backtracked because he was too embarrassed to admit he was wrong. Even Piers Morgan said he was wrong. And then the way they've spoken about Forest in the last couple of weeks, and then to bottle it and not go to the game and ring up to say, I want to do the Tottenham Arsenal game, it's comical.
He was right, Muller. He was right.
You're right, Jamie.
He was right not to go to the game.
No, it would have been hilarious.
I think that as well. I think that as well. When it comes to the situation with Gary Neville, I think he's got to try and look at it through a Forest fan perspective, because he's essentially punishing and berating a fan base that didn't write that tweet. But also, at the time, I wasn't too keen on the tweet. I'll be honest with you. At the time, I thought that looks a bit rash. You've just released it now. Is this the attention we need? But someone had to ask the wider question. Someone had to ask the question in a way that would get people, involved, and Forest did. The two following statements they made were perfect and well worded and put Howard Webb in a corner that he couldn't back out of. That is good from the club. And actually, I back those statements. So what Gary Neville should have done is stood back and said, okay, how do Forest fans view this? They feel that they've been unfairly treated. And you only have to look through various highlights reels to see the bad decisions that have happened. Look at the wider situation with the points deduction. Look at the wider situation, with how the fan base is feeling about it. The fan base is really upset because we're not in charge of the club's finances, and we feel effectively that we've been punished as a result of some unfortunately bad decision making by the club. And that, to then go on TV and describe Forest as acting like a mafia and acting like a petulant child. Maybe Forest are just fed up of the same stuff happening every week and nothing being said about it, and they wanted to raise the point. And at the end of the day, look at it through the eyes of a fan. We're frustrated. We invest our money in football, and we don't want to see bad decisions going against us. What's wrong with that? What is wrong with that? And the idea of considering all options, and okay, it was a bit vague and it might have sounded, you can make any inference you want about it, but Forest are annoyed. If you had, and from the perspective of the owner, by the way, I won't go on too much of a rant about this. I'll ask you the questions about it. But he's invested £200 million plus in a football club, and there's a guy in a shirt in the middle of the pitch that is making some poor decisions. People in a room at Stockley Park making some poor decisions. And he's thinking, I've invested £200 million in a football club and it's being taken away from me. Okay, a lot of bad performances, by the way. I'm not taking away from that. But it's being taken away from me by someone who is meant to protect the integrity of the game, who is meant to ensure there is a fair game. And that's being totally ripped apart. The standard of officiating in this country has gone downhill from the start of the season, not just for Forest, for Wolves, for lots of teams. But the teams that it isn't going downhill for, you can just go and have a look yourself. But I feel that Gary Neville just needs to look at it from the perspective of someone outside the top 6. It's not good enough. And if he's a real pundit, he'll call it out and say, this isn't good enough. I've played English, in the game. I've played in the Premier League. And I know that if the Premier League is the best league in the world, it's got to have the best officiators. So that's what I think we should be calling out.
And I said last week, Jay, on one of these shows, Neville, in his heyday, was one of the worst players to from the ref. Any bad, you go back and watch Premiership years. Him and Keane and all these other pundits now coming out about
all over the ref.
They were all over the ref. United were the worst team. Fergie used to do Fergie time, glare at the ref, make sure the ref was adding time on. He'd bully the ref.
Yeah, he used to do his watch thing.
Yeah, he used to do the watch. He used to do that to the ref as well. I'm watching you. I mean, come on. Neville sums up, right? Yeah, go on.
Learned behaviour at that place. Because I remember when we played Man United the year we got relegated at Old Trafford, and I forgot to get a ticket, so I ended up sitting in the Man U end, and Roy Keane was doing what Roy Keane did back then. He was kicking people and everything else, but he got booked just after half time, I think it was, for mouthing at the ref. Cloughie dragged him off for mouthing at the ref, and all around me, the Man United fans were like, blah blah blah, and I was a couple of mates that were Man U fans up there. They were like, he's some player, that lad. And that's the game, apparently, where Steve Bruce was saying to Ferguson, we've got to sign that lad. He was incredible. Well, we got beat 2-0. There's a mentality, isn't it? And unfortunately, and I'm the worst for giving ref stick at a game from the crowd. Unfortunately, there needs to be a massive sea change. And you're a rugby man, Steve, so you've seen the difference. But there needs to be a massive sea change, because it's not. I mean, Jamie's younger than me, still playing football, but there's a reason why there's no decent refs at the top level, hardly, because they all get lost in the system because they're sick of little Billy's dad gobbing off at him because he didn't give him a throw-in on a Sunday morning at Chilwell Park or whatever. Do you know what I mean? It's that whole thing. There needs to be a sea change, and it has to start from the top, because in the job I've been doing for the last 20-odd years until recently, I see kids playing football, and I see kids that were in PE lessons going down on the floor and slapping the floor as if they're, all that stuff. The role models are horrendous. And Forest are guilty. I'm sick of watching players diving around. VAR and diving are killing the game for old farts like me.
It's just Ryan Yates would never dive. What are you talking about? He would.
That's what I'm saying. We're as bad. I'm saying that. That's what I'm saying. I'm agreeing. I would rather see, would love to see the kind of Ray Grade and Brian Clough mentality of not letting the players dive, not giving the refs stick. And you're right, Jamie, the refs are terrible. And what's made it worse is VAR, because there was a game, was it yesterday? Was it Tottenham? You couldn't see a more blatant penalty since Callum Hudson-Odoi. And the ref didn't even give it because he knew VAR would dig him out. Now, the difference is VAR did dig him out. I know we don't know, and there's all sorts of rumours flying around, but the first and second penalty against Everton, whilst I think they were both penalties, you can argue a bit of a case for the other side of it. The third penalty, short of getting out a gun and shooting him, there couldn't be more stone wall. There was nothing to defend it. I get that the referee might not have seen because the way the ball jumped up, but on VAR at first view, I mean, if he has watched that on VAR, the rumour is he didn't now, isn't there? But if he has watched that on VAR, then whoever watched it is should never, ever, ever set foot on a football pitch to referee or VAR again. If he hasn't looked at it, that's the only excuse, isn't it? But you're right. The tweet, I agree with you. The wording of the tweet was slightly unfortunate, but
I thought the tweet was fine.
What's followed since is almost universally every football club, barring some of those top 6, are backing it. Every pundit is protecting, and this is why I appreciate you can't say this, but every pundit is protecting their paymasters and turning on Forest. That's where the corruption is, if you like. You're right. Gary Neville should be standing up and saying what's really happening. Of course he's not going to. He's getting paid through the nose by Sky TV, who get paid by the Premier League through the nose. You know, not paid by the Premier League, but their product. You know, as Malcolm said yesterday, we're part of this global product brand now, and I absolutely hate that. But there we go. We can't change it, so we've just got to be a part of it and get better at it. But I don't agree with all the cheating at all.
Yeah, do you know what? Yeah.
No, sorry, one quick one. To sum up Neville as well. Wasn't it the Merseyside derby? Didn't he say in commentary, if VAR gets this wrong or VAR doesn't give this, there'd be a riot or something, he said. And so he's ripping into us, but then he's saying VAR got to get this right, otherwise there'll be riots and there'll be chaos in the crowd. And so what's he want? Does he want passion, or does he want people to be upset about it, or just keep? Neville is just, and because it doesn't, what is he with this Forest thing? Because it doesn't affect Man United. He can rip into teams like Forest, but if it was like Ten Hag, right, has come out now and criticised the ref, right, for the Burnley game. Has Neville come out now and criticised Ten Hag? So that's fine. Ten Hag can rip into the ref, and only a week before, Ten Hag was then mentioned Forest. Then the tweet and all what Forest is saying. So Jay, you hit the nail on the head. They're all hypocrites, every single one of them. And even Alan Shearer, right? He came out and and there's a video out there a couple of years ago. He is ripping into Dermot Gallagher, who's on the screen, because Newcastle didn't get a pen against Arsenal. And he's ripping into him, saying, how can you sit there and not give that, and blah, 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 and VAR's this, VAR's that. And all of a sudden, Forest kick a fuss up, and we're the bad guys. It stinks to me. Absolutely stinks.
I just think that, you know what? I think, these guys are paid to give an opinion, and I respect it. And actually, as I said, I do actually enjoy the content that Sky produces. I'm a massive, it's somewhere I'd like to work one day, definitely. But of course, at the same time, I think that on these shows, there's just an inconsistency of views. And that's what I can't get to grips with, because I've got a consistent view of VAR that this shouldn't just be a cushion for referees to fall back on, when they, I don't know, I'll just go to VAR. At the same time, VAR should be better because referees should trust them. It shouldn't be that cushion. It should be just if it's needed. It shouldn't be every single time. And unfortunately, I just feel that this season it's really gone downhill. You saw it with earlier in the season, the amount of red cards you saw earlier on, and people were going, "Oh, that's a bit weird." The total number of red cards for last season was, surpassed within a third of the season. So you think, what's going on here? VAR is becoming too involved. The game needs to be more simple again, because that's when it was the best. Clear and obvious is offside, okay? But then when you looked at it for the Coventry game, that player offside supposedly, even though the blue line was over his boot and he wasn't offside, and even if he was offside by that view, it's not a clear and obvious advantage. But again, that is it. Everything's subjective, and unfortunately, there's an inconsistency in subjectivity as well, because Anthony Taylor gave a penalty to Jota when Dubravka supposedly tapped him on his ankle, but when Rayner's tapped on his ankle, and by the way, I don't think the Rayner penalty is remotely a penalty. I think it's super soft, and I think that no way in the world was it a pen. But you've seen it given. So what do you what do you expect fans to think about that?
But Jay, if that challenge was in the middle of the pitch, it'd be a free kick.
Maybe.
And there's the inconsistency. And but again, as referee, I would never give these things. I think that's so soft.
Garnacho had a penalty for exactly the same tap against a team weeks ago at Old Trafford. exactly the same challenge on the back of his ankle, and he had a penalty for it. That's the inconsistency.
And David, I'm going to ask you a question now, because yesterday there was no cards given and no VAR interruptions. I thought the game flowed really nicely, and Simon Hooper did a good job of managing it. When there was a couple of questionable things, I think that the Edison jumping into Bolly was a little bit questionable for me. I think that's the one thing I kind of thought. I think that maybe could have gone to VAR and looked at. But that being said, yesterday was positive. So what are your thoughts on just kind of allowing the referee to have a little bit more power and VAR? Do we really need it this heavily involved?
Obviously, the outcome you want from the game, I actually hadn't even thought about the referee until from yesterday's game until you guys mentioned it. So actually, that's clearly the outcome you want. I think for the Premier League to be a world-class, the leading sporting league in the world, you have to minimize the refereeing blunders, and that the video technology is essential to do that. And so the comparisons to the NFL rarely makes a mistake. A couple of times, you see a couple of calls, but it's very rare for the US sports pundits to talk afterwards about the refereeing. So whether that's a cultural thing, because the Australians do it as well, I'm not sure, but we just, like they say it in a lot of the sports, if you just let them kind of play and let them get on with things. But the problem is that if you give the players too much leeway, they'll take more. And so then they'll start doing more fouls, and you'll start having injuries and these things. And so you kind of have this never-ending kind of give a little bit and then take a little bit. I think you've got to persist. You've got to persist with the VAR. You can't not have it. You've just got to get it right. But it comes down to the quality of the individuals involved. And so, some of the sports around the world, they have one VAR person or a team of VAR people that they just use for every single match. And so they have a team of 5 characters that are in the bunker or whatever the saying might be for wherever they are. And so that way those people are kind of more consistently making the decisions. The problem is that with these games, the decisions are so small and finite. And Jamie, to your point, Marinakis has invested £200 million in making Nottingham Forest a Premier League club. The impact of that is enormous. You have people with jobs, you have, land developments, you've got bigger stadiums, you've got people flying into Australia to go to Nottingham Forest, you've got, you try and book a hotel in Forest for that Chelsea match, it's freaking impossible, right? It brings a whole bunch more to the area of Nottingham. And so the impact of the benefits of the Premier League is so large that when you've got a referee or a person involved that can impact the outcomes and they're not as good as they could be for whatever reason it is, it's just incredibly frustrating because people's livelihoods, depend on this stuff. If Forest are a championship team, then that just, people lose their jobs at Nottingham. It's serious bucks. And so they just got to get it right. They've got to try harder. And I'm sorry, Premier League, you're behind the NFL. You just are. You're massively.
Yeah. And you know what? And I think there's no excuse for it, because if you claim to be the best league in world football, right, you've got to get everything right. And it's not just about quality on the pitch; it's the quality of the rule making.
These problems, Jamie. Does the Italian league have this problem? Does Serie A have this problem? Does the Bundesliga have problems with the referees? Is it just the Premier League, or what do you think?
Well, Sweden have denied it in VAR, haven't they? They blocked it in Sweden.
I think probably if we saw it in a different country from the eyes of their fans, I'm sure we'd have a moan as well abroad. Don't get me wrong. I don't think that it is only the Premier League that has had some poor officiating. But if we're the people that claim to be setting the example of what football should look like, which, by the way, the Premier League, if this is what football should look like, I'm scared, because scrapping the FA Cup and replays and stuff, it's a load of rubbish, and we shouldn't take that approach. And I'm more inclined to watch Italian, German in German football, not Spanish, because they're selling themselves to America now. But German, Italian football, for me, I'm more inclined to watch because it feels like more of the traditional game. But even that's kind of slowly fading away. But this could easily be a rant about modern football, but I don't want it to be. But finally, we'll kind of... Yeah.
Sorry, Jay. Can I just say one quick thing about VAR, right? So you take VAR out, right? Now go back to the Everton game. Before VAR, we would watch that game and 3 penalty incidents, right? we've all would have discussed them individually, right? Down the pub, in work, with your mates, on the football and so on. And we all know that, especially like Molo said, that third one was clear as day. We all seen it. Even the M3 supporters knew that was a penalty, right? Now, take VAR away, we would have gone, that ref has had a complete mare there. That's terrible. What frustrates us, what these idiots like Neville, Gary Neville need to understand, where the technology is there, where the guy is watching the screen, he's watching it in slow motion, he can pause it, he can fast forward it, rewind it, he can watch it for all different angles.
Steve, he can't, all I'm telling you, sir, the integrity of the game, he can't have watched it back.
That's my exact point, Molo. That's my exact point, Molo. Yeah. This is why we're getting frustrated. And this is why Dave said about the NFL. If you must be watching that in the truck and going, Ashley Young has not touched that ball. We are getting frustrated because the technology is there now. Use it. Use it properly. It was a howler. Before VAR, we would have said, yes, the ref had a mare. Get on with it. We just carry on then. Now we got VAR. The reason why we're getting so, and I'm getting so angry about it now, is because the people in the truck get to watch it. They can watch it 10 times until, oh yeah, he got nowhere near the ball. He took Hudson-Odoi first. It's a pen. Straight in the ear. Go look at the screen. But it doesn't happen consistently enough. Look at the joke, the Wolves-Brighton game. Was it Wolves-Bournemouth game? I mean, what was that about? It's like, that's just a joke. I mean, they're making them, it's going down a slippery slope. It's become this new high-tech thing into an absolute joke. I mean, we don't have to be Forest fans, right? If we were watching that Ashley Young challenge, I've had other fans come up to me and say, how wasn't that a pen? I'm like, I don't know. I mean, come on, like, it's...
Steve, let me take you back. Let me take you back to last season's League Cup. I knew straight away Wolves should have had a pen in that League Cup game last season. And then VAR looked at it and played on. So when we were lucky enough to be on the other side of it very rarely, but I knew it was a pen from the sidelines. And when I saw it later on the TV, I was like, how on earth was that not given us a pen? We've looked out there. But like David's right, we need the technology to get things right. But what's the point in it, David, if it's got things wrong and it opens up the discussions that have come up? Because, Steve, I don't know if I quite was as clear about what I was trying to say. That's about the third penalty. That third penalty, my assumption at the moment, and the rumours that are flying around, is that Anthony Taylor said, yeah, I saw him take the ball, so he's decided not to look at it. That's all I can think. Because any human being with a pair of eyes that has ever known anything about football that watches that once will go, whoa, no, he didn't. That's a penalty. So if the VAR guy has watched that and not given a penalty, there is no excuse. I won't use the word I'm about to, corrupt, but how can you look at that and say no penalty? If yesterday the Declan Rice penalty,
you're right.
He can't have watched it. He can't have done. I'm telling myself that
wasn't the direction that the referee said, oh, he got the ball, so therefore he was confident of the decision. But look, we probably spent enough time on that. Jamie's probably sitting there going, Dore's going to kill me if we keep talking.
I was going to say, Dore's wanting to hear score predictions, so that's what I'm going to have to put to you guys
Dore's also
next.
hoping that we say hit like and subscribe. So
yeah, hit like and subscribe. Please do it, because Dore has been telling me, he's got a gun to my head right behind me. No, not really, but seriously, let's have your score predictions. David, let's start with you. Score prediction for the Sheffield United game. Putting you on the spot, first of all.
Dore normally makes me go last, Jamie.
See, I'm not like that. See,
no. I think Forest will be in the drop zone going into that match, and we will win 1-0, and we will have a very, very nervous last couple of minutes.
Steve, what are you thinking?
3-1 Forest.
Okay. Marlo, what are you going for?
I just want to smash them, really.
Right. I'm the opposite of David. I don't think Luton are going to get another point this season. So I don't think we'll be in the drop zone from Friday night.
Burnley
However,
have got a match this week, don't they? Burnley have got... Oh, Burnley, they've got some...
Yeah, Burnley got Newcastle and Tottenham next game. And Everton are on a bit of a roll. I think they'll turn over. I hope they'll turn over Luton. But I actually think we're going to draw at Sheffield United 1-1 because we always seem to draw there 1-1. I don't want us to.
Okay.
Before I forget, shout out for the Garibaldi girls. Nearly forgot. It's almost ready to go live.
Okay.
Yeah, I forgot.
Jamie, what's your prediction?
My prediction. I'm gonna go 2-0 Forest. I'm gonna go for the clean sheet. It's gonna be tough, but yeah, I'm gonna go. Yeah, just 2. Yeah.
No, who 2?
I'm gonna go. Who 2? Oh, Forest. No, 2-0 to Forest.
No, but who kicks the goals, Jamie? Who's on the score sheet?
Ooh. I'm gonna go Morgan Gibbs White. Morgan Gibbs White, and he's gonna give it one of these, like when he scored against Forest. And then I'm gonna go Chris Wood. I'm going to go Chris Wood.
Ooh.
And I think he's going to come back into form just to save us like Taiwo did. So, and Taiwo will probably be fit as well.
Divock.
Danilo's due another goal as well, I think.
Divock.
If Divock scores the goal that keeps us in the Premier League, I will be absolutely baffled. I will be baffled.
$100,000 a week.
Well, before we get into a Divock Origi rant, which I feel like that's where it might be going, that is all from us today. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed.
No, Jamie, you're giving as much time to Divock as he deserves because that's all he gives us on the pitch. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying nothing. I could not possibly comment. But I hope you've enjoyed the podcast, and I hope we've given you enough time that you deserve to hear more about our thoughts on Forest. And thank you to David, Steve, and Mollo for joining me. It's been a real pleasure, and I'm sure that we'll reconvene soon. And Dore, can you be ill more often? I've enjoyed this. Take the time off. Go on a holiday. Go on a big holiday or something. I'm enjoying this. I'm in the hot seat.
Is he sick or is he just sick of Forest?
No, I think he's got more jogs with Des. I think he needs to get fit there.
No, this is what.
Whoa, okay. Well, I don't want to, be sued or anything like that by Dore.
He ran a mile with Des, and he's still recovering.
He's very ill.
Well, Dore, we're all wishing you.
He's got man flu. Nothing worse.
We're wishing you a good recovery anyway, Dore. In all seriousness, a good recovery. Take care, and thank you for listening. That's all from the DoreOntour podcast. See you very soon.